For today's video we're going to take a look at what's probably the world's most bonkers magnetic audio recording format, the Rolls dictation machine. The Rolls machine was made in 1967 in Hamburg, Germany by Apparatebau Stellingen. Apologies for the German pronunciation there. It was distributed in the UK by Block Anderson Ltd, as can be seen by this piece of card that stops the head moving around when you transport the machine. It was sold in some areas of the USA by the GAF Corporation and known as the GAF Rolls machine. My particular machine comes in its original case and is complete with its microphone and the original instruction leaflet and a delivery note when it was sent to the Wolverhampton branch in March 1967. There's a hole in the side of the case here, so you can plug the microphone in without taking the machine out of the case, thusly. Over the years there had been a number of different formats of magnetic recording medium for dictation machines, like wire recorders. This is a pair of reels from an Agaphone wire recording machine. And then we've got a Grundig Stenorette cassette, which in essence is a reel-to-reel machine. It's just the one spool is held in a little cassette. But there was a need to send your recordings back to your secretary to have them typed up when you were working away from the office. So various manufacturers came up with different solutions to the problem. Telefunken came up with a magnetic record. This was even supplied in a board-backed envelope with a place for the stamp ready to be posted. The IBM system with the magnetic belt that we saw in a previous video was sort of postable, but if you flattened it too much it wouldn't do the band much good. And then of course later on Dictaphone came up with the Ultravox system, which is a nice flat sound sheet that could easily be posted in an envelope. And then along came the Rolls machine, and its recording medium was a great big roll of film. It has holes down the edge, like a camera film, to drive it through the machine. The big selling point of the Rolls was that when you finished your dictation, you could simply cut a length of the film off and stick it in an envelope. They even had another option for the film, and you could buy it in pre-cut lengths in an envelope like this. Among the advertised features of the Rolls machine is the fact that you could write on the red side of the film any special notes about what was recorded on it or instructions without damaging the recording itself. The recording side is of course the brown side that looks like any audio cassette. Looking round the machine itself, on the front right hand corner you've got a battery level meter. The right hand hole here is for the microphone to plug into, and the left hand hole is for the optional earphone to plug into. On the left hand side of the machine you've got the sensitivity switch, which has got high position for recording a conference and normal for just normal dictation. And then you've got a playback volume pot or slider here. Moving round to the back of the machine, you've got the battery compartment here and the on-off switch. There was also an optional power supply to run off the mains, which simply plugged in instead of the battery box. I was quite alarmed when the machine arrived when I took the battery box off to feel how heavy it was, and it was obvious there were some batteries in it. Luckily when I took these out, although they were really old and had leaked a bit, they hadn't really done any damage to anything. And finally, looking at the right hand side, you've got a wheel here so you can advance the recording film manually, and the actual bridge plate that allows you to insert a new roll of film. And there's also a hatch here that allows you to put the film in. The bridge section here has also got a guillotine, so you can cut the film off when you've finished your dictation. It's also got a bit of a party trick, so I'll show that in more detail later because it's definitely worth seeing. The microphone itself has quite a sci-fi look, and you've got a switch here. If you move it into the speak position, you can dictate into the microphone. Stop is obviously stop, and then listen allows you to play back the recording, and finally you've got a spring-loaded rewind position at the bottom. The connector on the end of the microphone is their own bespoke design. I've never seen anything like that on any other piece of equipment. Okay, I've got the rolls hooked up to a bench power supply, and we can have a look at its killer feature, the actual tape play mechanism. The tape, or film, is driven by these notched wheels here, but the tape playhead moves from side to side for each step the film moves forward. If I put it into play now, you'll see the motion of the head moving side to side with the film driven forward one step at a time. Nearly all of the other formats will move their recording medium round in a circle, and the head will gradually spiral across it till it's finished, but the rolls is completely different. With its totally unique tape playhead mechanism, I think the rolls is probably going to be the most bonkers magnetic audio recording format in the world. So I think the next thing to do is to listen to what the roll sounds like. There was a little bit of audio recording on one of the pre-cut sheets that was in the pink envelope, so we'll load that one in. You place the film onto the notched wheels, close the bridge, and then wind it backwards until it lines up with the arrow marks, and now you're ready to play. The loudspeaker is in the microphone, it doubles up as a loudspeaker as well. So I'll put this up near the camera so you can hear what's being said.
Perfect. 1, 2, 3. Right, we're testing the rolls. This I take it is the conference setting. That's the quieter one. I better read something into it. Would you kindly advise us if you have completed the orders we sent you for folding on your small pots as per our memo of the 5th of October? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Test over playback. Brother. Stop.
And there you have it. That's probably some original recording from 1967 when the machine was new. Okay, so now I think we can try a bit of fresh audio recording, and for this I'll use the roll of recording film, which drops into the hatch back here, like so, and there's a little hatch cover that can close on top of it. And then you pull it forwards, line it up on the splined holes, try and hold it in position and close the bridge. It's a little bit fiddly, in fact it's quite a lot bit fiddly. I'll come to that in a minute. And then you wind it back until it lines up with the start arrows again, and we're ready to go. Okay, I'll put the switch on the microphone into the speak or dictate position and we'll dictate something. The biggest weakness with the Rolls machine seems to be the perforations on the actual recording film. It has a tendency to snag and then it just tears the perforations, and once the perforations are torn that film isn't usable. You can imagine if the boss had done a really important dictation and sent it in the post through to the secretary, and when they came to play it the film perforations tore, they wouldn't be able to play the film, and that just wouldn't be good. It even mentions it in the manual. It says, it is possible to reuse the film until the side perforations tear. Under average conditions, the film can be reused 9 or 10 times. That seems a little poor compared to other magnetic recording formats, but possibly at the time the film was cheap enough that you could use it once and then throw it away or maybe file it. Anyway, I think that's enough of that dictation, so let's rewind that and see what it sounds like. So I'll manually rewind it to the beginning, and let's see what it sounds like. The biggest weakness with the Rolls machine seems to be the perforations on the actual recording film. It has a tendency to snag and then it just tears the perforations, and once the perforations are torn that film isn't usable. You can imagine if the boss had done a really important dictation and sent it. And yeah, I mean, the recording quality for a voice recorder is actually quite good there. You could hear some previous recordings I'd done in the background. I think you're meant to erase it with a bar magnet, but I haven't got one of those. And I think there's just traces of the old recordings left on the recording film. The other thing I can do with the switch on the microphone is put it into the rewind position to rewind that film and play it again. Like that. Right, I said earlier that we'd have a look at the guillotine on the machine, and now seems like a good time to do that. If I move the guillotine slicer across to the right, it'll latch in this little hook over here, and it'll move the film forwards about 3/4 of an inch before it then springs back and cuts the film off. That way there's always a tail end left on the film, so you get to hear the whole recording. So let's give this a go. And maybe the spring's a bit weak, so I'll just push that off to finish it. But there you have one sliced piece of film. Another feature noted here is the fact that once you've guillotined the film and it's put the 1/3 inch space on it, you can punch it with a hole punch and file it in a ring binder should you want to archive the recording. The machine could have also been supplied with a foot control for the secretary when they were transcribing the recordings, and also an earphone or stethoscope style headphones. Okay, next, as is traditional on these videos, we'll try the machine with a bit of music recording. Obviously it wasn't intended to do hi-fi recording, it was intended as a voice recorder, so you shouldn't expect it to be too great, but we'll give it a try. So we'll put the microphone into the record position, hit the music and see what happens. Okay, that's enough of that. So we'll now rewind the film to somewhere near where it started and see what it sounds like. Okay, that's the film rewound a little bit, so I think we'll stick it on to play and see what it sounds like. Yeah, it's not entirely great, there's quite a lot of wow and flutter, but when you look at the actual tape drive mechanism later, you'll realise that it was always a bit of a compromised design in that respect. But for a machine that's over 50 years old, it's not too bad. Okay, I've got the Rolls machine up on the workbench, and we can now sort of take it apart and have a look at what makes it work inside. So I'll remove the battery box. That simply unplugs like that, and then this cover at the back here is just clipped on. It just unclips both sides and that comes off like that. We'll take the roll of recording film out because we won't need that for this bit. And then we've got a screw at the back of the aluminium cover plate, one on each side, so we'll just take those off. That's one. And that's the other one, and there's a little washer on this one as well. Right, that's those off. And then we've got 5 screws on the underside to remove before we can get the plastic cover off. So there's one here, and finally one back here. And then that gets that part off. And then there's one more screw at the front that allows us to release the aluminium cover plate from on top. So we'll just take this one out. And now I can just flip the machine back over. And I should be able to take the aluminium cover plate off. Not forgetting that I have to lift up the bridge section to actually lift off the cover plate. Like so. There are two motors in the machine. This one here deals with moving the recording head. That one is switched on the whole time the machine is powered, and it actually moves with the recording head itself backwards and forwards. The second motor is this one here, and this is a stepper motor. It moves the film forwards one click at a time. When the machine came, this motor wasn't working, it just sat there and buzzed. And it turned out behind this plastic wheel there's a ring magnet that is part of the motor, and that's bonded to the plastic, or it should be, but it had actually fallen off. So I had to re-stick that. The difficulty was it has to be aligned precisely, so this little ball bearing locates in these little dots on the plastic wheel. And without alignment marks, it was a bit of trial and error to get the ring magnet reattached in the correct position. But I got it right on the second attempt, and the machine's now working fine. Another couple of things that weren't working when I first got the machine was the sensitivity switch and the volume control. On both of those it was just the shaft on the potentiometer was stuck with old oil, and a bit of fresh oil got that sorted. But it's interesting to see they've gone for a modern type slider for the volume, but actually it still works with an old rotary pot, and it's just got a sort of rack and pinion system to drive the pot, and it's kind of clunky really. The drive system for the tape head is quite interesting. There's a shaft that comes off the motor here, and that ends in a worm gear down at the bottom, and that drives this gear here, which turns the drive through 90 degrees, so now it's vertical rather than horizontal, and that ends up at the bottom with a rubber drive wheel. The rubber drive wheel sits in this slot in this movable plate down here. And when the plate moves one way, the rubber drive wheel will press against one side and drive the head in one direction. And when the plate moves back the other way, it'll press against the other side and the head will move in the other direction. When the head gets to the end of its throw, it activates a switch which not only advances the recording film forwards one notch, but it also then moves this movable plate so the head moves back in the other direction. It's this process of the tape head constantly changing direction, and the fact that it's a friction drive, that means the play speed can be a bit variable, and the machine would have never been particularly good for music recording. Okay, I've got the machine hooked up to the power supply again, so I think we'll try and get some nice close-up shots to show the machine working. Here you can see the movable plate that changes the direction of the playhead. And here are a couple of solenoids that move the movable plate, and indexing switches for the sprocket drive wheels. And this is the stepper motor itself working. If I now press the rewind button, you'll see this solenoid close and change the position of these switches, and it'll reverse the stepper motor. Like that. And finally there's a relay on each side at the back of the machine.
Anyway, I think that's about it for this video. If you've enjoyed watching, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel. There'll be more vintage stuff and repairs coming soon. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a future video.